There's a memory you are certain of. Something that happened. Something you remember clearly. The details, the feeling, the context. You have told this story before. You would stake your credibility on it. It's probably wrong. Not in a small way. Not a minor detail here or there. The memory you are most certain of may be the one that has been most thoroughly reconstructed, revised, and quietly rewritten every time you have recalled it. And you have no way of knowing which memories those are. You cannot feel the difference between a memory that is accurate and a memory that has been altered. They feel identical. They always do. This is not a glitch. This is not a failure of your brain. This is how memory works. And the implications are more profound, more unsettling, and more important for how you understand yourself and other people than almost anything else in psychology. Memory is not a recording. This is the foundational truth that everything else rests on, and it is the thing that most people, including most people who have taken psychology courses, do not fully grasp. When something happens to you, your brain does not press record, capture the event in full fidelity, and store in a file that can be played back accurately on demand. That is not what memory is. That is not even close to what memory is. Memory is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain is not retrieving a stored file. It is rebuilding the event from fragments, pieces of sensory information, emotional residue, contextual cues, and crucially, information that was not present at the original event at all. It pulls from what you knew before, what you have learned since, what other people have told you, what you expected to happen, what you wish had happened, and what makes narrative sense given everything else you believe. The reconstruction happens in milliseconds, feels like retrieval, and is virtually indistinguishable from accurate recall. The person who did the most to demonstrate this, scientifically, rigorously, repeatedly, was Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, a cognitive psychologist whose work over 5 decades has fundamentally changed how courts, clinicians, and scientists understand the reliability of human memory. Loftus began her career in the 1970s studying eyewitness testimony. She conducted a series of experiments in which participants watched films of traffic accidents and were then asked questions about what they had seen. In one of the most famous studies, she found that changing a single word in the question, asking participants how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other versus when they hit each other, produced significantly different speed estimates. The participants who heard the word smashed also more frequently reported seeing broken glass in the film, even though there was no broken glass. The word in the question had altered the memory of the event. This was not a minor finding. It was a demonstration that memory is not sealed after encoding. It remains open, malleable, subject to modification by information introduced after the fact. Every time you're asked about a memory, every time you tell a story about something that happened, every time you think about an event in your past, you are not simply retrieving it. You are potentially changing it. And the change is invisible. You cannot tell. Loftus went further. In a series of studies now known as the Lost in the Mall experiments, she and her colleagues demonstrated that entirely false memories of events that never happened, could be implanted in healthy adults simply by suggesting that the event had occurred and asking the person to think about it. Participants were given 4 memories from their childhood, described by a family member. 3 were real. 1 was fabricated, a story about getting lost in a shopping mall as a child and being found by a kind stranger. About 20 to 30% of participants came to remember the fabricated event as real. Some developed rich, detailed, emotionally resonant memories of something that had never happened. Some were reluctant to give up the false memory, even when told it was fabricated. This experiment has been replicated, extended, and built upon. False memories have been implanted of being attacked by a vicious animal, of witnessing demonic possession, of nearly drowning, of committing crimes. In a study particularly relevant to the legal system, participants were shown doctored photographs of a hot air balloon ride that they had allegedly taken as children. Most had not taken such a ride. Most came to remember it anyway. The architecture of false memory is identical to the architecture of true memory. The brain does not tag memories as real or fabricated. It stores the reconstruction. And the reconstruction, whether it started from a real event or from suggestion, feels the same from the inside. Now consider what this means for the memories you are most confident about. Confidence is not accuracy. This is one of the most important and most counterintuitive findings in all of memory research. The strength of your conviction about a memory has almost no relationship to its accuracy. People who are completely certain that they remember something correctly are wrong at roughly the same rates as people who express moderate uncertainty. The certainty itself is generated by the brain as part of the reconstruction. It is a feeling attached to the memory, not a marker of its fidelity. This has devastating implications for eyewitness testimony, which remains one of the most persuasive forms of evidence in legal proceedings despite being one of the least reliable. The Innocence Project, which uses DNA evidence to exonerate wrongfully convicted prisoners, has found that eyewitness misidentification is the leading contributing factor in wrongful convictions, present in roughly 70% of cases later overturned. In many of these cases, eyewitnesses were not lying. They were certain. They were remembering. They were wrong. There's a specific type of false memory that is worth understanding in particular: flashbulb memories. These are vivid, highly detailed memories of emotionally significant events, where you were when you heard about a major tragedy, what you were doing when something shocking happened. People report these memories with extraordinary confidence. They feel uniquely clear, uniquely accurate, uniquely preserved. They are not. Studies tracking people's memories of the September 11th attacks found that when participants were interviewed shortly after the event, and then again months and years later, their memories changed substantially over time. Details shifted, context changed, central elements were replaced, while their confidence in the accuracy of their memories remained consistently high. The vividness of the memory was not evidence of its accuracy. It was a product of the emotional intensity of the encoding, which made the memory feel more real without making it more accurate. Why does the brain work this way? Why is memory reconstructive rather than reproductive? The answer lies in what memory is for. Memory did not evolve to give you an accurate record of the past. It evolved to help you predict and navigate the future. A system that updated past experiences in light of new information, that integrated context and expectation, that constructed useful narratives rather than stored raw footage, would have been far more valuable to an ancestral human than a perfect recording system. Perfect recordings are expensive to store, slow to retrieve, and often irrelevant to the problem at hand. A constructive memory system is fast, flexible, efficient, and, crucially, predictive. The cost of this design is the one you now understand. The past is not fixed. It is a living construction that is updated, revised, and reimagined every time it is accessed. The you who remembers is not retrieving the past. The you who remembers is partly creating it. This has consequences that extend far beyond the courtroom. Every relationship you have is built in part on memories that may not be accurate. Every grievance you carry may rest on an event that has been altered by every retelling. Every story you tell about who you are, your origin narrative, your understanding of what shaped you, your account of what happened between you and another person, is a reconstruction that has been revised, sometimes substantially, every time it has been thought or spoken. This does not mean your memories are worthless. It does not mean the past is unknowable or that nothing can be trusted. It means that memory is not what you thought it was. It is not a passive record. It is an active, ongoing, creative act, shaped by emotion, expectation, suggestion, subsequent experience, and the deeply human need to make sense of the story of your own life. Elizabeth Loftus has spent 50 years being told, sometimes aggressively, that her research is dangerous, that it undermines the credibility of witnesses, that it gives ammunition to those who would dismiss real trauma, that it is better not to know. She has continued anyway. Because the alternative, a world in which we treat confident memories as reliable facts, in which legal systems send people to prison on the basis of vivid but mistaken recollections, in which we never examine the stories we tell about ourselves, is more dangerous still. You have a memory you are certain of, a moment that shaped you, a conversation that explains something important about who you are. Hold it gently. It may be true. It may be partly true. It may have started from something real and traveled through every telling and every remembering to somewhere quite different from where it began. You will never know which, and neither will anyone else. That uncertainty is not a problem to be solved. It is the condition of being human.